What really happened to Stone Cold Steve Austin? He left the spotlight and left us all a little warmer than we'd like to be. Stunning Steve. Steve Williams broke into wrestling at the Dallas Sportatorium, the home of world-class championship wrestling. Soon after, the legendary Dutch Mantel suggested that he changed his name to avoid confusion with the more famous Dr. Death Steve Williams, who would have his greatest fame in Japan as a member of a tag team called the Miracle Violence Connection, and suggested that he work under the name Steve Austin instead. By 1990, he hit the big time in World Championship Wrestling as one of the Hollywood Blondes, but that didn't last. A few years later, following an injury suffered in Japan and a series of frustrations with the company, he was fired over the phone. After a stint in Extreme Championship Wrestling, he was hired by the World Wrestling Federation and repackaged as the Ringmaster. Austin 316. If the Ringmaster sounds a little goofy, that's because it is. It's better than some of the other options Austin was presented with, though.
I pitched the office all these ideas, and they came back with names like Fang McFrost, Otto Von Ruthless, and Ice Dagger.
Fortunately, his wife had once told Austin to drink his tea before it got stone cold and gave him his new gimmick. In 1996, Austin cut his famous Austin 316 promo, and after a legendary match against Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 13, he'd go from being a villain to a full-on fan favorite who spent the next 6 years as the biggest star in the company. Adding injury to injury. At SummerSlam 1997, Austin was wrestling against Owen Hart when Hart botched a piledriver and sent Austin crashing to the mat directly on his head. While he finished the match and left the ring on his feet, Austin suffered a neck injury that kept him out of in-ring action for months. He also had several knee injuries and took to wearing 2 knee braces in the ring. In 2003, the injuries accumulated to the point where Austin finally retired from competition. As he said in a 2013 interview after casually listing a pretty horrifying string of injuries, "It's a rough job. It's a fun job, but make no mistake about it, it's a rough-ass way to make a living." Out of the ring, in the spotlight. Even though he was no longer active as a wrestler, Austin's gift for entertaining promos would see him continue working with WWE years after his retirement. From 2003 to 2004, he appeared on screen as an authority figure. Considering his tenure as a wrestler saw him run over in the parking lot, crucified by The Undertaker, and occasionally driving up to the ring in a beer truck, he probably understood that WWE could use a little law enforcement. From then on, he'd make several special appearances for the company and was finally inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2009. Stone Cold stuns Hollywood. While he hasn't made the kind of headlining appearances that his old rival Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has in the Fast and Furious franchise, Austin has made plenty of trips out to Hollywood. Unsurprisingly, his first major role came from a movie produced by the WWE called The Condemned, about a convicted prisoner who gets involved in a last man standing Hunger Games situation. Beyond that, his major cinematic output has involved direct-to-video movies with titles like Tactical Force and Maximum Conviction, but he's also appeared in big screen hits like The Expendables and Grown Ups. The Skullbuster. In 2011, Austin would return to WWE programming as the host of a reality competition show called Tough Enough, where aspiring wrestlers competed for a spot with the company. Unfortunately, while Austin was very entertaining, the show went off the rails pretty hard and the winner never wrestled a single match on WWE television. That disaster didn't keep Austin away from reality shows, though. In 2012, he became the host of the Survivor-like Redneck Island, and in 2014, Country Music Television launched a truly ridiculous game show called Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge. In addition to a series of exhausting bust-ass events that make American Ninja Warrior look like a beginner's yoga class, culminating in an obstacle course called the Skullbuster that'll wear you out from just watching it, the show has a catch for the winner. The first person to complete the Skullbuster sets the time to beat, and if any subsequent winners don't beat it, the person who holds the record gets their prize money. In other words, you can nearly kill yourself to actually win this thing, and someone else gets your money if you don't do it fast enough. The one really great thing about the show is that Austin himself is shockingly encouraging. Unlike the stone-faced veteran persona that he had on Tough Enough, the Austin of Broken Skull Challenge is more like an extremely gruff cheerleader, accompanying the contestants on the course and telling them how great they're doing. If you're ever having a rough day, just put an episode on in the background and imagine Stone Cold telling you that you can do it. It makes washing the dishes a much more intense and rewarding experience.
Perfect! Way to go.
The Steve Austin Show. If you're still wondering why you haven't seen Steve Austin in a while, the real answer is that his primary work these days is in the wild world of podcasting. Starting in 2012, Austin launched The Steve Austin Show. Usually, the show involves Austin having conversations with current and former wrestlers, and occasionally going in-depth in really fascinating ways. And the video version has become one of the WWE Network's most popular original shows, even when, or maybe especially when, he's critical of the current product. And sometimes Austin uses the show to voice his support for same-sex marriage. Probably didn't see that one coming from a guy who was once called the Bionic Redneck, huh?